What's up again, everybody? We are 6 days from the release of this set, and the hype is real, so let's go ahead and jump into another couple of cards. Taking a look at Hulk, we've got all three of the cards spoiled. We know the common, uncommon, and rare versions. Looking at the common version, he is a 6-cost fist character with that Avengers affiliation, a really nice 166, 177, 188 stat line, and no ability text whatsoever. So in essence, we have a straightforward, strongly statted 6-drop with very low fielding costs, and there's not much else to say about this card in the competitive sense, as I don't really expect it to see play because it has no ability. I would pick this up in draft, however, because the stats and the fielding cost are very strong. 6 is a bit of a difficult spot to get to in draft, but if you can get there with some ramp and low drop characters, then this card will seriously clean up. The uncommon Hulk, Emerald Dawn, is a 7-cost fist character with that Avengers affiliation. Same stat line, and his ability says when one of your character dice is KO'd, spin Hulk up 1 level, and when Hulk attacks, you may spin him down 1 level, and if you do, he deals 2 damage to each opposing character die. This is a very cool multi-tiered ability that feels like a nod to Hulk Green Goliath of old. He has a built-in way to ensure that he can spin down when he attacks. He can force a mini board wipe before blockers are declared, allowing some unblockable damage to go through if your opponent doesn't have beefy defenders. The when attacks portion of the ability does get cancelled if your opponent has Wonder Woman Reflections out, which is a sizable hit in that Wonder Woman will see competitive play in order to counter things like Lantern Rings and Guy. Hulk's board wipe effect when he attacks will KO 2 of Guy's sides, as well as 2 of Multiple Man's sides and 1 of Shriek's sides, if obviously Shriek is not wiping him. But being a 7-cost character hurts his utility greatly, as that can be difficult to get to without something like the Rare Nowhere that we will talk about soon. Generally in draft, I would avoid picking this up because of that 7 cost, and unless you can get something that helps you get there like Rare Nowhere in a draft, I'd probably still avoid this card. Last but not least, we have the card that I pulled. This is the 7-cost rare version of Hulk. He says Overcrush, and when he uses Overcrush, he may deal the additional damage to target opposing character die instead of to your opponent. This is a great example of interesting new card design and another way to take an existing keyword and expand upon its utility. So let's pretend that Hulk is blocked by a 6/6 while he's on his 8/8 side. That would be pretty good for us. Instead of dealing 2 damage to your opponent, you can direct that damage to another of your opponent's dice, KOing 2 dice and further pushing your board advantage. This makes for a nice finisher in a casual team and looks to be very fun to use, but as far as constructed goes, I don't see a place for this on any existing teams unless the Avengers affiliation is somehow bulked up in future sets. In draft, I think it's worth rare drafting, but just as with the uncommon, it'll be difficult to get to and use, so don't expect it to win you a ton of games, though if you do get to it, I think it does win you the game. The next character we're taking a look at is Ironheart, and we know of 2 of her rarities. We know the common and the uncommon version. Both versions are 5-cost bolt characters with the Avenger affiliation, a 144, 255, 366 stat line, which is pretty okay. The 3 purchase cost on top is a little expensive, but overall not too bad. The common version has the keyword Callout, which for those that don't know is a new ability that says when a character die attacks, you target a character die, and that is the only character die allowed to block the attacking character die with Callout. And you aren't forcing it to block, you're just saying that is the only one that may block it. Callout looks to be extremely effective when placed on a well-statted character, and this is a great example of this. Here, Callout provides what essentially is an auto KO to most things that cost 5 or below, and the versatility of calling out a high-value character or forcing 6 damage down your opponent's throat is huge. You certainly take a hit with a 3 fielding cost on the top side, and a 255 is even borderline poor just because you're paying 2 to get it out there, but you make up for it by using Callout to basically guarantee that this die stays in the field or connects face. It's hard to say how this or other Callout characters will fare in the competitive scene, as a lot of the lists are finely tuned, but I could definitely see this being there after a rotation. As far as draft goes, this thing is a gem. I'd pick this up, save up 5 energy, get it out in the field, and you'll have a big advantage by just picking off your opponent's lower cost characters or by dealing face damage. The uncommon Ironheart says when fielded, you may add a die die from your used pile to your bag, and on her burst face she says you may add up to 2 dice instead. The ability on this card has good value, allowing your important dice to skip the line and jump into the bag before your sidekicks in the used pile is good churn. In Modern, however, there are just too many strong ramp and churn options to consider this one for a competitive team. As I've said with other cards, this has more value in Draft where ramp and churn are more scarce, and so it's definitely worth the pickup in that format, even if you have to pay 5 to get to it. Last up, we have Nowhere, and we know of all 3 of Nowhere's rarities, boy do we. The common version is a 3-cost mask action that says continuous. Your character dice cost 1 more to purchase and are placed below this die. Anytime you could use a global, you may send this to the used pile to add all dice underneath it to your prep area. I struggled to think of a good use for this card. Because it puts your dice into the prep area, characters with the back for more keyword can get some value out of it. The 1 energy price hike on purchasing cards is very similar to if you were to rip over a die, but unless you immediately send this die to the used pile, you don't get the immediate prepping benefit for the extra energy, and in fact you're paying 3 just to get this die, waiting until it shows up on the field, then buying dice for the price of the die and the rip global, and when you choose to send Nowhere to the used pile to prep all of those purchased dice, you have to just kind of wait until you choose to do that. This does provide an interesting threat in the form of an immediate backswing board swarm if your opponent attacks and leaves themselves even a little bit open, and this card is clearly better if you are somehow playing from ahead for that exact fact. I just don't see that being the case, however, because you have to buy this first and then everything you purchase afterwards must go under it rather than getting the choice to put it in your used instead. And so this card makes more sense in Draft where you won't have access to stuff like the chalkboard global, and paying the same amount as ripping something over is still pretty good, even if it's going to take a little bit longer and you don't get the immediate benefit. The uncommon version of the Nowhere card says you may spin all character dice in your reserve pool to level 3, and then you may field level 3 character dice for 1 energy this turn instead of their printed fielding cost. If this were a continuous action die, this would be a lot more interesting and I think a lot more powerful. The fact that it isn't makes it far too inconsistent to warrant paying 4 for it. The hope would be that you'd roll this die alongside something like 2 characters and 2 sidekicks for a total of 5 dice, the 5 here accounting for a pinch of ramp, at which point you'd use this, guarantee the 2 characters land on their level 3 sides, and then field each of them for the 1 energy that you rolled on both sidekicks. That would provide some pretty good value, especially if the characters miss on their roll and re-roll. In the event that one or both roll on their level 3 side already, then you're basically ending up with a pointless die that you paid 4 for, except of course that you get the lowered fielding cost if they had more than a 1 fielding cost on their level 3 side already. All that said, there just seems to be too many little annoyances with this card for me to see it functioning in Constructed or really even in Draft. Alright, enough of that other mess. It's time to talk about this card. This is the rare Nowhere. 3-cost mask action says you may swap any character die in your used pile or field zone for an unpurchased character die costing 1 more, and then you return the swapped die to its card. Character dice swapped in the field zone stay on the same level. This card is actually a little bit difficult to talk about because it just does so much for the game. This card has ridiculous value. It opens doors for 6, 7, 8, or even more cost cards to actually see play. You can buy and then rip Hunter Global, a 3-cost character, on turn 1, then buy and rip this on turn 2, and then swap out your fielded 3-cost character with a What If Super Rare or a White Lantern, and that's easy, and that's fairly consistent, and that's all doable. You can cycle this over and over with the Super Rare Mr. Miracle's Boomerang ability, getting you higher and higher cost characters really fast. You can fabricate a 6-cost Iron Golem and then rare Nowhere it out of the used pile to get a 7-cost character for essentially free. There are like so many crazy things you can do with this that it's hard to even just imagine all of them, and yet even just turning a 4 into a 5 or a 5 into a 6 has some serious value, especially when they're already in the field zone because they stay on whatever side they're on. So you can get a stat buff of like 3 or 4 or 5 stats just by playing this card. I believe this card will see competitive play, especially if WizKids prints some seriously powerful 6 or 7 cost cards in the upcoming sets. And if you see this in draft, pick it up. It's the equivalent of having an extra energy each time you play it, and going from a 4 to a 5 in draft, or a 5 to a 6, is really solid. Plus, it's like the best trade fodder in this set. So there you go, another 3 down, a ton more to go, and there are only 6 days left. I'm probably not getting to the end of this unless I do some crazy mega episode, or maybe like a lightning round. That would be kind of cool. I am so hyped up for this set, it is crazy. I'm actually kind of worried that I'm hyping myself up so much for this set that I'm going to be let down, even if just a little bit of it is bad. So what do you guys think of these cards? Are you a big fan of the Rare Nowhere as well? What are some crazy combos using that card that you can think of? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks for watching.